Before we start to talk about how do we learn, I would like to put you two questions. But these two questions are for you answer me in the end of this presentation. The first one is, what are the important steps in the learning process? And the second one, what are the difference between a learner and a student? Let's reflect about this. To understand how do we learn, it's very important to be able to teach how do we learn. And these are what we are going to reflect now. The brain map. In the, let's say, in the 18th century, several research start to make some reflections about different areas of the brain. Brodmann, in the 19th century, identifies some different aspects of the brain, but the technology was not sufficient for him to identify with details and precisely. Only in the 20th century, António Damasio, a Portuguese researcher working in the United States, show up the important difference about the speaking area, about audition area, about the vision area. And these different areas are very important for the learning process. How do we learn is a question that we are posing to ourselves since many years ago. And we receive the information in the working memory. This information means that we are seeing everything in front of us like a movie, just passing by, up till in a certain moment a click happens and we start recording. And this recording means that we are, let's say, paying more attention for the process. And this attention is, let's say, registered in the short-term memory or working memory. This is a behaviorist action. We pay attention to the person which is showing us this information. But in a certain moment, we start to send this information from the short to long-term memory. This is a metacognition process. This is a reception, reflection, interaction, and repetition. To register it in a long-term memory, this is constructivism. And these aspects can have two different lines, when one is emotional and another is a logical process. It's very important to know this, and it's very important that when we are receiving this information, only 10% of we are reading, or no more than 20% of what we are listening and 20% of what we are seeing are registered. This means that we have to make a huge learning process after we receive the information. So we can say that human beings are different multimodal learners. We are learning enormous quantities of information in a structured surface format, and we record this information in the short-term memory, and we pass this information to long-term memory by interaction and reflection. But that's not all. What is the learner's work? Should they be just passive, or should they pay attention, or what are the, let's say, the mistakes they can make on reading? There are 8 important rules on this step. Stop thinking about their thinkings while you are in the class and should relax. Focus in the presenter, slides and materials. Pay attention to any non-verbal communication of the presenter. Ignore other students. Forget mobiles and other distraction factors. Take your notes. It's very important. While what you did not understand, write it. Don't forget to be informed about what you didn't understand. Be mindful and careful with your attention. We will talk about this in the end of this presentation. And now, think if your answer about making 3 questions on each item. This is very important for your reflection. Make 3 questions about each item in the end of the presentation. Now, let's go to the second step. How do we understand and memorize? And this is what we can say the second step. We understand and memorize in a constructivist process through a metacognition with interaction, reflection, and repetition. And this should be made in a very important way, because this is constructivism. Interact, work is necessary, it's important, but you have a dark side. And this dark side is, you should pay your attention. When you are studying with your group, don't forget that the main target is study. Not talking about everything, not having distractions, not having... This is very important, the interactivity, but the dark side is that you should pay attention for your job, which is debate about the contents. Now let's focus about the constructivism step. And this constructivism step has what we can say another important rules. And these rules are the following. Organize the contents by topics. Make a table of contents. Write a resume about each topic. Take notes about your doubts. Make questions about each topic and debate with your studying group. Very important. But that's not all. Simulate to be a teacher and present the contents to your mates or to yourself loudly. Don't forget, this is very important. We understand much better when we are speaking loudly than when we are just thinking for ourselves. The 7 is evaluate yourself and let be evaluated. Maybe you understand one thing different from what is the content's objective. Okay? Another one is make 10 minutes breaks when you have long-term journeys. Every half an hour, make a 10 minutes break, because you need to relax. Your brain needs to relax a little bit to understand better in the next step. Sleep and let your brain recuperate every day. Don't be too much tired. Don't be exhausted, because your brain just blocks and cannot understand anymore. Okay, the attention, importance and previous aspects. Attention is one of the most important ingredients for your learning. For instance, several research has been done about this aspect, and this research has been important research has been made by Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons. They are 2 Nobel Prizes, and they have investigated very much about this attention. And about the questions. There are important steps in the learning process, or the difference between a learning and a student. I suggest you to reflect about this with your group of studying. Thank you very much for your attention. But the final question is what to do to learn how to teach. This is up to you. Reflect about it. Thank you very much for your attention. It will be a pleasure if you put me questions. Bye.